guess what? It's Optimus Prime on steroids. Yes, that's right, it's Titan's return. The leader, Autobot, Apex, and Powermaster Optimus Prime. I only understood a couple of those words, such as Autobot, leader, and Optimus Prime. I am an old school G1 fanboy. Back in the day, Optimus Prime was one of my first heroes. Other heroes included the Doctor from Doctor Who, Luke Skywalker and Han Solo, and Mr. Spock. Why Spock? Well, he was the cooler of the two. Him and McCoy, no real compensation there. It was Spock. No real compensation, no real competition. No real competition, that's right. Spock was the man between those two. Kirk, meh, take him or leave him. Alright, what have we got here? Well, this is from our friends at Smith's, a local toy shop to me. I believe they are something of a multinational, but who can really say? Not me, because I haven't bothered doing any research. Transformers, not the classic font, but all the same. Right, what you can see inside the box here is Optimus Prime in what looks like a tribute to the G1 Powermaster. Now, what basically happened in Transformers, you had at least three main continuities for the G1. There was the UK comic, the US comic, and the cartoon series. Now, the cartoon series, Prime died in the movie. He got beaten to death by Megatron, who likewise succumbed to his own injuries and was rebuilt as a Galvatron. In the comics, though, Optimus Prime managed to beat Megatron in a video game by sacrificing a whole load of the local populace, and decided, no, that's really not living up to the Autobot code. To save myself, I sacrificed a whole load of non-sentient, non-existent video game characters, so I must therefore die. And he promptly got himself killed that way. Several issues later, after all the cries of depressed children before the death of their beloved hero, he was brought back as a Power Master on the planet Nebulous. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to cough. Yeah, excuse me about that. I've got a rather bad throat today, but that isn't going to stop me reviewing this bad boy. Now, this is a tribute to how he was reborn on Nebulous. He had a Power Master mode, which basically meant he combined with his trailer into something quite closely resembling this. Now, I've done no research whatsoever, so I don't know if that means that's going to have the same features. As you can see on the back here, he's got a truck mode and a trailer mode. The trailer combines into his robot mode, and it separates into a battle station mode. And there does seem to be something going on with the truck here, but I don't know if that's actually going to transform into a separate robot, because he had his original robot mode, so to speak, which combined into everything else. I don't know if that's actually going on here. There's nothing about it at all on the cover here. We've got this Titan Master bit here called Autobot Apex, which I'm assuming is this young plumber Whatsit, who presumably transforms into the head that fits on top of the robot's body. That's not what a Power Master is, that is a Headmaster. But we do see that there's this Nightbeat, Hardhead, Sentinel Prime, Autobot Blaster. Well, he's classed here as a leader class, I suppose that's possibly true. Deluxe for Hardhead. Be interesting to get that, because I actually had the original Hardhead Headmaster as well as the original Powermaster. Now, why am I a little annoyed about the Headmaster bits here? Because that's basically what it is. It's a little figure transforming into a head to go onto the body. That's a Headmaster. A Powermaster was a bit different. It was a little figure that transformed into an engine that you plugged into the robot. The idea being that it powered up the robot, but in reality it just meant that you could unlock the transforming ability. Otherwise, if you lost the Power Master bit, then you could actually just press this little button in and it just allowed things to unlock. Yeah, a bit math, but there you go. So the rest of the packaging is just basically the Autobot symbol here, a rather impressive picture of Prime on the side. Nothing really interesting apart from Hasbro's stuff, although they do mention that this means that it's authentic. I mean, it's not like anybody could ever just, steal the logos and everything, all the packaging and whatnot, and just pretend it's authentic. It's not like it's ever happened before. Right, I'm going to need to cut this open here. Thankfully I've got scissors with me for once, instead of a pair of screwdrivers. And it just opens up quite easily like that, and then pulls out like so. Now we can see Prime's got one gun here and he's got another gun that looks like a completely different kind of gun over that way. Plastic feels decent enough. Nothing really of interest going on back here apart from general design schematics. I recognise that fella here, that's Fortress Maximus. That looks like a Decepticon jet of some sort. That looks like Cerebral, which was part of Fort Max. Yeah, looks like quite interesting blueprints. That's Blaster. Right, I'm just going to put that to one side because I'm going to get distracted by it. And this looks like possibly instructions and some sort of warranty thing, I think, or just some general blurb from, yeah, who cares. Alright, we have Powermaster Optimus Prime. It does give you basic instructions on how to transform. And it doesn't look like the cab section has any transforming ability of its own in this regard, which is something of a shame. But it does have some features there which we saw on the box which I didn't mention, namely that the, whatchamacallit, does actually open up to let Apex fit in. That must be its new headmaster mode, and we've got all these little trading cards here. We'll come back to these later, I think. For the most part, I'm all curious about what Prime himself looks like. And of course, as I say that, I go for this other gun which looks like it's quite secure in. You know what, get you like that. Oh yes, you're literally on a loop here. There we go, and you're free. So this gun presumably fits in the hand like that at some point, or you might actually be able to grasp it. But as a Powermaster, he had two identical rifles that he held. These are completely different guns altogether. I'm just going to... I was expecting these ties to sort of, you know, undo a little easier than this, but ultimately they're not. There's something that you do have to, you know, plastic breastplate to protect it from something, I don't know what. Possibly children poking Prime through the box, I suppose. Oh, and he's dropped his gun already. Yeah, let's just put that to one side. So, one thing we noticed straight off the bat, he does have grippable fingers. Not a grippable thumb, but definitely grippable fingers to let him, you know, hold it in place not too well, as it turns out. Yes, that is a bit of a disappointment, to be honest. It just sort of sits there quite loosely. Doesn't seem to be a way to get around that unless there's something I'm not actually seeing. Oh wait, hang on a sec. There's a little gap at the bottom there, so yes, you can have him hold it a little more secure there. There's a little gap that's probably going to be repeated here. Yep, something right there that you can sort of fit the bottom of the gun handle in, and that just gives him a bit more security. Right, so as I was saying, the guns originally were identical. On his original figure he had just one rifle, which doesn't look like either of these in any way, shape or form. But for some reason he upgraded to two, and he also had these shoulder cannons as well, which were always pointing upwards. And were actually detachable, yes. And yes, they do include the function of being a sort of deployable drone type thing. You could have a figure, normally Haikyuu, as was his name, who was a Powermaster component, strangely renamed Apex and turned into a Headmaster component for some reason. But you could have Haikyuu sit in one of these and he would fly off, and they were actually a damn sight bigger, okay, than this, and that was probably to compensate for the fact that Haikyuu's bizarre transformation basically meant that as an engine section, his legs basically folded up along the sides and then came down to form legs, and then his arms just sort of went up and down like that, and that was it. That was all the posability he had. He could do the splits basically. Yeah, but he basically had to sit legs akimbo on one of these things and then fly around. That's me dropping everything. Not had it 5 minutes and I'm dropping things. But yeah, I'm quite impressed by the articulation there. Full 360, and you can do bicep pumping action. Let's just get rid of the guns here because I don't think they're that secure no matter what. No articulation beyond rotation. The legs. Oh yes, much like the original Powermaster, Prime can do the splits as well, and that's because of the base mode thing. It looks like he's actually got, yes, he's got articulation in the knees as well, so he can do stuff with that, and the feet have well, they're not just articulate, they also have some sort of feature to that must be something to do with the transformation. We'll come back to that later, I guess. Do they lock together at all? No, they just sort of have a you can't get them perfectly straight. Okay, that's probably because of just the way they've been put together, but I'm not going to complain about that because that feels quite nice. So he's got a damn good degree of joint manoeuvrability and turns around as well, so that's got to be something to do more with the transformation than anything else, but it will give you just that little bit of extra posability. And the level of detail is very nice, and I thought that would happen, yes. That must be some sort of section to allow things to drive down, maybe? Who knows? We'll know more when I've looked over the instructions, if I'm even going to bother doing that. Little sad thing that it's so transparently plastic. Transparently plants? Ugh. Forget it. I'll try that again. It's a little disappointing that it's so open here. It would be nice if they at least had something to fold it, you know, to hide that a little bit. But I suppose it might also be some sort of feature. There might be something going on there that we're not aware of. Yeah, I'm guessing that must be the wheels for his truck mode. So yeah, the actual cab unit mustn't be able to transform, but let's just do one thing that I've always wanted to do since the G1 comics. Oh, I was going to take his head off, but it turns out you can't. It's basically just a little helmet that goes over. And there's the face of Optimus Prime without his faceplate on. But you can take that off. I was going to say I wanted to do something I've been wanting to do since the early days of the comics, where Prime's head had been separated from his body to get to the Matrix Force, but obviously I can't do it in that regard. But this must be Apex rather than IQ. No idea what his backstory might be. All I do know is that the camera won't keep him in focus very well. He does have... Actually, he's got very small amount of articulation right there in the shoulders, so he can put his arm out to shake the wrong hand. And that's basically all. The head's got some motion as well. That could be a bit difficult when, you know, if the head gets snapped off inside something. But basically, much like the traditional headmaster, his knees bend in a way that isn't natural, and then, yep, poke him in here. That's a bit of a disappointment, to be honest. I was kind of looking forward to being able to take the whole head off, but when you see the amount of detail and size of the sculpt and everything, yeah, it just was never going to be a thing. Let's see if we can get Prime's body out, his actual truck mode out of here, and that... Oh, right. Yeah, that's a disappointment. Yeah. Nice one, boys. Yeah. You can sort of swivel that around like so, put the head in like that. Make sure everything goes nice and whatever. Is there any way to release this? Looks like there's... Oh, yes, there is. There is some way to release this to a certain degree. You can move him forward a bit so that he's got some manoeuvrability. Right. That's frankly disappointing. I'm very disappointed in the fact that you don't get a second robot mode. I mean, in general, it looks... First of all, it looks so much like the Powermaster Super Robot mode, as I think it was referred to. But on steroids, and the Powermaster mode looked like it was on steroids to begin with. So a little bit of a disappointment. I've not bought any Transformers in a good few years. I was going to say in a year, but then I corrected myself because it's been longer than that. But I've got to say the plastic quality is alright. It's a little lackluster in some places, but in general, I mean, that's a nice looking truck. Presumably a Cybertronian truck, but yeah, it's been so long since I've actually done any transforming. I'm not quite sure I'd trust myself to do the actual transformation straight off without damaging something. Let's just get these instructions out. Okay, so it took a while, but I finally managed to get this thing transformed, and if there's one thing I realised, it's why I've not really bothered getting any of the newer Transformers these days, because the transformations are just so fiddly. Sometimes I feel like I'm going to end up breaking the things more than anything else. Now, like I said, I haven't actually bought any recently myself, but I have gotten my hands on some, and this is one of the more, what I call the hollow Transformers, where there's just so much basically, you know, empty plastic. Like you can see there's massive gap here, which, you know, could have some uses. I mean, I would really like it if this was actually a lid that you could move down and, you know, form a platform, have things roll in and out. But of course you've got a bit of his body armor that you can just about see in the back there, poking up. It's the grey bit. Yeah, can you see it? Looks like an inverted chest plate. Yeah, you know, it's just disappointing. It looks so much like the original Powermaster version. You know, they've done a very good job of managing to recreate the look, but it just feels kind of flimsy where all the different joins are. And actually getting it together like this, I am not kidding. You've got to make sure everything is in exactly the right position. I had a slight bend in the knees originally, which was preventing these sections from actually hooking up properly, and in turn that was preventing everything else from hooking up. The instructions really don't make it clear how you do that. Okay? It just sort of jumps from this section here to there, to having the legs in that position without telling you how to actually get them into that position. There's plenty of videos out there, you know, reviewing this in a bit more detail than I have, actually showing you how to actually transform it properly, and that's, you know, even then it took a while to actually figure out that the real problem is the legs. You've got to get the legs exactly in there, and getting this young film what's it in and out can be a bit of a problem. You've got to pull it out, and you know, you've got to do two things basically: pull it downwards and then out, and even then it doesn't always go. And of course this isn't transformable in its own right, which is it's a crying shame, because that was the whole point of that Powermaster, to give you as many different toys as possible. I haven't as yet got this into the base mode, and quite frankly I'm not sure I even wanted to, because given how flimsy it is just transforming from the robot into this, I've got my doubts it will actually survive. Although obviously other people have managed it without doing so. Maybe I'm just being too hard on it, but you know, in general some of the plastic feels better quality than others. Some otherwise feel a bit subpar compared to the rest. If you can take a look at the wheels here, you can basically see how much hollowness there is inside here as well. This is all decent enough quality plastic to a degree, but the wheels are just connected by having been poked through. If I try pulling this off, that'll probably end up snapping these sections off here, and that'll obviously ruin it drastically. Otherwise it does have a bit nice sway around and whatnot. The actual cab section opens up somehow like this. You've got this little section here that folds in and out like that, so that you can sort of get that all nicely covered up, so you don't have any obvious gaps anywhere, apart from where the obvious gaps are. That seems to have... Oh yes, that's basically part of the transformation process. You can swing it around and, you know, do as you like with it. You know, you still think with today's technology they could have done so much more with this than what they have. But you know, it's nice enough as it is when it's in its proper mode. You can just sort of get the helmet out like that, and you know, have Prime do some comedy bits such as "Always look both ways before crossing the road, kids." But yeah, and I don't get why they're calling it Powermaster Optimus Prime instead of Headmaster Optimus Prime, because it is really a Headmaster, not a Powermaster. You don't have the Powermaster gimmick of High Q becoming the engine to unlock the transformations. That's just not happening. Again, since they're going with different guns here, it kind of ruins the symmetrical appeal of the toy as well, because you've got two completely different guns. And you can only ever have this gun on this side as well because of the unsymmetrical nature of it, but c'est la vie, and they're always pointing forward. The smokestacks, stroke gun cannon stroke scout crafts are quite nicely positioned here. Again, at the top of what was the arm part, although on the original toy the arm parts came here. Yeah, it looks good. It just feels flimsy. that feels so horrible. I'm sorry. It really does feel horrible. It's much thinner plastic, which is probably in a bid to reduce costs and everything, but it really feels flimsy. Right, I'm going to risk trying to put this thing into its base mode, so I'll see you in 3, 2, 1. Quick discovery while transforming back from truck to robot mode, just for the sheer hell of it. He does actually have articulation for the sides of the arm itself. If you lift that little panel up like that, he will now do side raises, so he does have a good degree of range of motion, more than I thought he did before. You could say there's more than meets the eye. Yeah. Well, I've got him transformed into his base mode, and from an aesthetic standpoint, it does look quite similar to the base unit he had in the original Powermaster mode. Similar, because at the same time it's completely different. The transformation, because the toy has a completely different design principle behind it, you know, the transformation into base mode is also completely different as well. I don't like it at all. The flimsiness I mentioned before in the actual truck mode translates to being very, you know, bizarre, very bizarre lack of stability in the base mode. I mean, really, this should be as flat as possible on on the ground here. Everything should be as even as possible. But it just, for whatever reason, I've done everything I can. I've tightened everything up that I can. It just doesn't want to stay as it should be. Okay, I've gone through the instructions here that I've got behind me. I've looked at videos on YouTube telling you how to actually do this transformation. No. It all sort of looks the same. I mean, even allowing for the positioning of the legs and everything, notice how over here, the bottom of this tower seems to be a bit closer to the plastic on this leg section here, this cover section, than the bottom of the base here, the bottom of the base of the arm here, the shoulder of the arm, whatever you want to call it. There just seems to be more of a gap here than there is there, and I can't see any logical reason for it. Everything is positioned exactly as it should be. So yeah. And the other disappointment, of course, is as you don't actually have a separate robot mode, the truck just being a truck, you don't get to have Prime standing in the middle giving commands and, you know, shooting the enemies with his own gun. You know, his guns are basically doing exactly what they're supposed to do. They're doing exactly the same sort of thing. They're more or less the same position. And like I mentioned earlier, Apex, as is his name, sits in this little fire smokestack, gun, cannon, scoutcraft type thing quite nicely. Yeah. And his head does tend to turn around on its own for some reason. I am assuming that's because that head is used as the connective bit between his transformed head thing into Prime's body. One other thing I've just remembered, the original Headmasters basically had a gimmick where when you put the actual head onto the actual body itself, there was a chest panel that opened up, and you could see their main stats, their strength, their intelligence, their speed, and so on and so forth. You don't get that here, but you do get this card. I thought it was a trading card at first, but it's actually just Powermaster Optimus Prime's stats. That's what I was giving you the details for Autobot Apex. So, I am assuming that's strength, that must be speed. I have no idea what that is. Oh, hang on, it's a brain, so it must be intelligence. And that must be firepower. So, we can say that for the most part, Prime's firepower is on level 8, his intelligence is on 10, his speed is at 8, which, given his size, is respectable, and his strength is at 10 as well. With Apex, this all gets added up, you know, increased by a factor of at least 2 to 4. Yeah, 4 in most cases, 4 and a bit in some other cases. Yeah, so the advantage of being a headmaster. Although that is some really horrible box art. You know, it's exactly the same art that's on the main box here. The main difference is that it's a lot further out and you can see all the differences. As a close-up, that works quite nicely. Once you see the full picture though, it just, well, the colouring mistakes is... the colouring mistakes really ruin it. I mean, the chest compartment doesn't give you the right colours, the forearms are the wrong colours, the top of the stacks on the shoulders are wrong. I'm not knocking the artist's skill, but had he actually seen the finished product, or was this just based on prototype colours? Yeah. Well, that looks good as a robot. So my recommendation, if you're going to buy this, wait till it's gone down in price, and then just leave the thing in robot mode in some funky position on your display cabinet. That's the best thing for it, really. Honestly, it is. Bit of a disappointment. But it's Optimus Prime, and he's worth it.